getting it out from under the poncho. Yeah, and ready into the fight, so to speak. But we are in 2 Chronicles 25 today, and this is all about Amaziah's reign. Amaziah. Interesting figures and kings that we learn about through the Old Testament. Now, let's look at who this man is in a brief synopsis here on Wikipedia. Amaziah, his predecessors, he ruled over Judah 796 to 792 BCE. The entire reign is 796 to 767 BCE. The predecessor was Joash of Judah. His successor was Uzziah. He died 767 BCE. Spouse Jecholiah, the house of David. His father was Jehoash of Judah, and his mother was Jehoadan of Jerusalem. Okay? Let's look a little bit into it, what he did. As soon as his kingdom was established, Amaziah executed the murderers of his father. Okay? His father was murdered. But in obedience to the Mosaic law, permitted their children to live. So he didn't murder all the relatives and stuff like that. He killed the people that were guilty, but did not kill their children. Okay, that's from which the American jurisprudence and Western jurisprudence gets its whole idea that you don't slaughter everybody's relative. For example, in China, if you do something that is against the government, your whole family suffers. In North Korea as well. I mean, if you do something against the state in North Korea, your whole family is imprisoned, tortured, and probably killed. So, again, that's a way to punish people for, of course, doing things that the state doesn't want them to do, etc. Namely, try to be free, but, other things as well. And here you see that Amaziah did obey the Mosaic laws, which permitted children to live. The children of people who committed crimes, the children were permitted to live. Okay. Now, Amaziah was the first to employ a mercenary army of 100,000 Israelite soldiers, which he did in his attempt to reconquer Edom, which had rebelled during the reign of Jehoram, his great-grandfather. He was commanded by an unnamed prophet to send back the mercenaries, to whom he acquiesced. Much to the annoyance of the mercenaries, his obedience to the command was followed by a decisive victory over the Edomites. Amaziah began to worship some of the idols. Oh no, look at that, see that? Amaziah began to worship some of the idols he took from the Edomites. An unnamed prophet rebuked him for this, and the king responded by threatening him that if he will continue to admonish, he will strike him. His victory over Edom inflated his pride, and he challenged to combat Jehoash, grandson of Jehu, king of Israel. The latter's disdain and scorn for Amaziah are embodied in the stinging parable of the thistle and the cedar in 2 Kings. In his resentment, Amaziah rushed into a disastrous battle at Beth Shemesh, and a humiliating defeat overtook his army and the land. The king was captured, 400 cubits of the wall of Jerusalem broken down, the city, temple, and palace were looted, and hostages carried to Samaria. This is all considered in the Hebrew Bible as a punishment for turning away from God. His defeat was followed by a conspiracy that took his life. He, like his father, was a victim of assassins, apparently bent upon putting out of the way one who had brought upon the land such dire disasters. Amaziah was slain at Lachish, to which he had fled, and his body was brought to Jerusalem, where it was buried in the royal sepulchre. Okay. According to the books of Kings, Amaziah did what was right in the sight of the Lord, but did not meet the standard of righteousness set by King David. So you can do what is right in the sight of the Lord, but still not meet the standard of righteousness by the king, by the predecessor, so to speak. And particularly because he did not remove the local shrines on the high places and centralized worship in Jerusalem. The writer of the book of Chronicles also considers that he did what was right in the sight of the Lord, but not with a loyal heart. So again, very important what kind of heart one does things with. But again, it is that idol worship. Oh, Lord. This is always a common thread, isn't it? Throughout the Old Testament. This is why studying the Old Testament is so important. It's really so important. It's not enough just in the New Testament. You have to understand the history of God and his people. It's constant, this constant battle with these other gods and these other idols. This constant battle. And boy, how do I say it? It was such a disservice that young, blessed children and second generation children did not learn the Bible. This was a massive disservice. The fact that we just said the divine principle, or that the lecturers and the organizer of these camps worldwide just somehow agreed by themselves, at least in the West, that Bible study was unimportant. It was like ridiculous. It totally killed a generation. Not studying the Bible, it was a critical failure in the education of our children. And of course, how parents educated their children. Parents did not emphasize the studying of Scripture. At least most of them, a lot of them did not. Most of them did not. The ones that did study the Bible with their children probably have a higher retention rate and a higher robust faith with their children. But principle is just not enough. Why? Because principle in itself, it is relying on the Bible. You understand? Every single page is quotes of the Bible. You understand? It's relying on the Bible to make its point. You can't just study principle. It is not enough. You need to have the context of the Christian worldview and the understanding of the providence of God through time, and look into the details. The principle is such a grand overview, you don't understand any of the details of what is the common thread of failure, particularly in the Old Testament, in the kings that ruled over Israel. Now, we do it every day on the King's Report, so we get a lot of remas in the Old Testament, and we see, I think everybody who follows the King's Report can clearly see the common thread of where there is destruction. And it's with idol worship, you see. Idol worship is the central problem. I mean, that constantly, how many times have we read something like this, right? I mean, you guys know. We've encountered this time and time again. Imobu's got a cool new multicam sweater, tactical sweater. That's pretty cool. There's a delay lag, so he doesn't even know I'm talking about him right now, until right about now, as now is when he's hearing it. Okay, there he goes. But there's about a 30-second lag, so they don't know. People don't know I'm talking about them until about 30 seconds later. Okay. But in any case, this is a common thread. I mean, this is a really important common thread. I mean, there was never this kind of emphasis. I mean, that's why it's so profitable to study the Old Testament. It really is so profitable. You cannot negate the Old Testament. This is what a lot of the heresies and a lot of the Rockefeller funding tried to do, to try to separate the Old and New Testaments and try to make the New Testament some kind of completely separate book. No, Jesus said he come to fulfill the law, not to get rid of it. He come to fulfill the law of Moses. That means to perfect it, not to get rid of it. You understand? So, for Leviticus 18, that's where the whole thing about the clarity of homosexuality. Even though Jesus was very clear that God created man for a woman, that he would leave his father and cleave to his wife. You know what I'm saying? That's a quote. Okay? But it's made unabashedly clear in Leviticus 18, where we're here, where homosexuality is called an abomination. Okay? And of course, the issue of not letting your children pass the fire of Moloch and giving your children unto priests that are going to kill them, to offer them to Moloch and to different gods and deities, which all the pagan gods basically demanded. They demanded not only animal sacrifice, but human sacrifice. This is a common thread of the satanic gods. They demand human sacrifice. So, it's very sad, very sad. But Amaziah, the bozo, I mean, he brought it. He brought in the icons and the idols. He started worshiping the idols. I mean, come on, man. I mean, how? Oh, golly, how stupid. Seriously, I mean, you've seen it time and time again. It's like, wow, don't people ever learn? You know what I mean? It's like time and time and time and time again. Golly, please. All right, so let's look into it. 2 Chronicles 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother was named Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. He did which was right in the sight of the Lord, but not with a perfect heart. Now it came to pass, when the kingdom was established to him, that he slew his servants that had killed the king his father, but he slew not their children, but did as written in the law in the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, saying, the fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for their fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. See, this idea that you are punished for your crime, instead of your whole family is punished, in order to strike fear into the successive generation. This is a very important part of jurisprudence, because it makes the individual fully responsible for their actions. And it doesn't punish families. It understands, for example, like, Confucian civilizations, or other types of civilizations, they punish your whole family because they say you didn't raise your child right. That's the argument you can make, right? But even though you raise your child right, the child at some point has free will. You know what I'm saying? The child at some point has the capacity, okay, or the mechanism wherein which they will decide between what they will do and what they will not do. Okay. They have the free will decision-making power. And so at that stage where they're able to make decisions, they have to become fully responsible. And that idea of jurisprudence is a critical form of jurisprudence which we use to this very day. This idea that if you've done something, then like up to 5, 7 generations or whatever, different generations are punished for what you've done. This is a very totalitarian type of jurisprudence. The individual no longer is responsible, but now his irresponsibility begets calamity for everybody else whom we have nothing to do with the craziness or the crime that was committed. So this is a very important part of the Bible right here, where it shows he slew not their children, but did as written in the law of the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, by the way, saying, the father shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for their fathers. but every man shall die for his own sin. They take it away from the family level sin, and they isolate the sin to the individual who committed the sin. That way, unfair punishment is not given to other people that that may have tangential influence on that person's formative development. Okay. But at some point, the person has to be responsible for their decisions. You can't just keep blaming the parents, for Christ's sake, or you can't just keep blaming their children, whatever the case may be, ad infinitum, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. At some point, the person has to be responsible for their actions. At some point, the person is responsible. And that's a very mature thing. If you think about it, it's a very mature thing. Verse 5, moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together and made them captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also another 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of God to him, saying, O king, let not the army of Israel go with thee, for the Lord is not with Israel, to wit, with all the children of Ephraim. But if you will go, do it, be strong for the battle. God shall make thee fall before the enemy, for God hath power to help and to cast down. And Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? And the man of God answered, The Lord is able to give thee much more than this. Then Amaziah separated them, to wit, the army that was come to him out of Ephraim, to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in great anger. The defeat of Edom. And Amaziah strengthened himself, led forth his people, and went to the valley of Salt, and smote of the children of Seir 10,000. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Judah carry away captive, and brought them unto the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they all were broken in pieces. But the soldiers of the army which Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Judah, from Samaria even unto Beth-horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. Now it came to pass, after that Amaziah was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods. Oh, no. And bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. Wherefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Amaziah, and he sent unto him a prophet, which said unto him, Why hast thou sought after the gods of the people, which could not deliver their own people out of thine hand? And it came to pass, as he talked with him, that the king said unto him, Art thou made of the king's counsel? Forbear, why shouldest thou be smitten? Why shouldest thou be smitten? Then the prophet forbare and said, I know that God hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel. Then Amaziah king of Judah took advice, and sent to Joash the son of Jehoaz, the son of Jehu king of Israel, saying, Come, let us see one another in the face. And Joash king of Israel sent to Amaziah king of Judah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon. The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trod down the thistle. Thou say, Lo, thou hast smitten the Edomites, and thine heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide now at home. Why shouldest thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldest fall, even thou and Judah with thee? But Amaziah would not hear, for it came of God that he might deliver them into the hands of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. So Joash the king of Israel went up And they saw one another in the face, both he and Amaziah, king of Judah, at Beth-shemesh, which belongeth to Judah. And Judah was put to the worse before Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. And Joash, king of Israel, took Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, at Beth-shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and silver and all the vessels that were found in the house of God with Obededom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. And Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, first and last, behold, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now after the time that Amaziah did turn away from following the Lord, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent to Lachish after him and slew him there. And they brought him upon horses and buried him with his fathers in the city of Judah, Judah. So there you go. That is the story of Amaziah. The story of Amaziah. You know, it's so interesting how people don't think taking on idols or is like a big thing. It's just so crazy. People don't understand how dangerous it is. You know, it's so dangerous. If you're in this kind of multiculturalist culture where, there's all these, quote, spiritualities, especially New Age spiritualities, where they just say all the gods are just manifestation of the same gods, this kind of Hindu, notion. And basically there's a whole amalgamation. You should just mishmash them all together. And the problem with that is that those gods lead you eventually to Satanism. Okay. They lead you to relativism. Okay. Like I remember when, after Father passed, I had no desire whatsoever to collect Buddha statues, and I used to collect like Confucius statues and statues of Jesus from the Catholic Church and something. I used to collect those kind of things as a student of religion, so to speak. But after Father passed, I had no desire for those things. They were just empty. They were just stupid pieces of metal and wood. They were completely devoid of meaning. And I got rid of them. I just got rid of them. I got rid of them all. I mean, I had no more thirst to collect religious statues in my, study of world religions or whatever. Just no desire. Now, granted, I collected from the traditions that, were the old days hung, the 5 saints that Father, blessed and, acknowledged. And of course, once you die, those folks see the reality of what of heaven and hell and spiritual world, etc. So, it's interesting. If Christians want to blame us for knowing the spirit world, or even, Father saying that he liberated certain people from hell and spirit world. Well, even in the traditional notion of Jesus, where he goes down to hell between the crucifixion and the resurrection for 3 days. And he frees everybody in hell. He liberates people from hell. That's even depicted in Mel Gibson's movie, The Passion, where hell becomes empty. Hello, that is what is, referred to as the spirit world. or the next world after you live on the earthly plane. Christ has the power. It doesn't mean that he will do it, though, for everybody. Because there is something of justice. And if you've chosen hell, you've chosen it for yourself. That's what people think. Like, you've chosen to live a life that will commit crime against God. So God is actually allowing you to live in the place that you've chosen to live. Which is, of course, a place of torment, and people just like you, if you've chosen to be of wicked nature. So all the things that you've done, there are people just like you. That was probably one of the most powerful depictions of hell. That somebody explained to me when I was young. Like, basically they told me, like, hell is a place where there's people just like you, of your spiritual level. So if you're a murderer, there's going to be murderers all around, always trying to murder you. If you're a thief, there's always going to be people trying to, rob you of this or that. You're basically getting attracted or sent to a place where people like you are being punished for things that, they've done. And that's a pretty hellish existence. Okay. But these deities, these gods, especially these ancient Babylonian, oh my gosh, these Babylonian ones and these Edomite ones and these Sodomite ones and these, oh my gosh, of the ancient world, holy crash. Crash, folks. They are wicked as hell. They demand human sacrifice. Like, I'm surprised. Like, yeah, this is what also drives me nuts. Some guys on the Danaher Death Squad, which is the Renzo Gracie, fighting team, key star players. I mean, some of them like the image of Kali. Kali is one of the Hindu gods, and she, has her breasts hanging out, and she has millions of arms or whatever. And she devours, people, and the whole Kali cult in Hindu religion, or the indigenous Indian religions, okay. Not only does animal sacrifice, but historically also have done human sacrifices, the killing of children. So so it's just like, especially young people, they don't understand. They just think, oh, that's cool, it's badass, whatever, and it's like, wow, it's yeah, and oh my gosh, it's like golly, like Kali used to do human sacrifice before she struck fear into her enemy. And I understand these are fighters, so they're kind of like, they like the whole idea of being badass and then striking fear into the heart of the enemy and this kind of stuff. But my gosh, my God. They don't know that they're unwittingly, by adopting such a demoness, they're unwittingly approving of human sacrifice on some degree because of their wholehearted embrace of this kind of wicked deity, of which that is the most prized possession, the destruction of innocence. I mean, this is why the principle is so powerful, okay? Especially the fall. I mean, this is why it's so powerful. You can't just live alone with the principle. You have to have it contextualized through study of the Word of God, which is the Bible. But what does the principle show? The principle shows the fall of man. Now, if you understand the world, and you understand the wickedness that is holding together the world at the super elite level. it's criminality, it's blackmail. And of course, the center of the blackmail in the super elite class, the Bilderberg class, Rothschild class, all of this super elite centralized power class, the blackmail that they have on one another is what? They are sex rings. Sex rings. Sexual rituals, sexual practices. Okay? The more deviant, the more nasty, the higher level that you go. And of course, this has been exposed from people within the ranks that have come out and said, wow, this is really happening. Okay? And of course, we shouldn't be surprised because the Bible talks about it as that. We fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness of this and spiritual wickedness in high places. The Bible clearly says we shouldn't be surprised that it's ruled by Satan because the Bible tells us that it's ruled by Satan. The world is, that is. But anyways, the point is, at the very highest levels of the rulers of this world, right? They're held together by common evil, right? So the more evil you can do and the more evil you can entrust with one another. So in many of these secret societies, et cetera, they would make you do, sexual practices or have sex with a man or have sex with a goat, or whatever it is. Have sex with, at the British monarchy and this kind of things, it's alleged that they're make you, of course, rape children and stuff like that, do things like that. How much are you willing to do for the lust of power, right? So they're testing people who will do it. And if you pass those tests and you've shown that you basically have no morals, you'll do anything for power. Then they say, ooh, okay, you come into our party. You'll be given benefits and your jobs and contracts and all. This is all like Skull and Bones, right? All these guys that come out of Skull and Bones, like boom, they have immensely successful political and business careers right after. Huge contracts come to them and all this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? They've got these inside networks that are held together by pedophilia and the cult of sex. Because that's how evil does. It blackmails one another and it vets out who has some conscience. Are you with me? It vets them out. And then it's held together by evil at the top. So it's held together by, what is it? Held together by the defilement of innocence. And the most innocent civilians on the planet are children. And who was the first pedophile? Which we expose that. Who was the first pedophile? It was Satan. Satan was the first pedophile. He went after Eve right after she hit puberty. So she may have been anywhere from 14, and no, girls are puberty early. She may have been anywhere from 11 years old to 16. So who was the first one who was going after a young child? It was Satan, you see. Isn't that interesting? Then isn't that interesting that the people who rule the world, who serve Satan, do the same practice? Isn't that interesting? See, then it really explains why, politically, everything's connected back to the destruction sexually of innocence. Because Satan was the first pedophile. And then, of course, that exposes the fact that the fall was not only spiritual, but it was also sexual. Are you with me? You see, then exposes the reality and power of the principle. So it is a very powerful insight the principle gives, exposing the not only spiritual nature of the fall, but also the sexual nature of the fall. Which, of course, is then confirmed for those who are awakened politically and understand how evil and secret societies and wickedness stays together and colludes with one another, and why it centralized power to itself. It's centralized power to itself, so an access to all those resources, and it can be basically above the law, tax exempt, but be above the law. And the people that organize and gather in those places are vetted in a process of blackmail. Of course, of which is the lustful passions, is the sexual passions, of which they use to vet you, to see whether or not you are truly willing to do anything. Oh, you're willing to do anything for power? You're willing to do anything to make success? Anything, huh? Well, let's see what you mean by anything. You see what I mean? This is what they're doing. There's now Hollywood is coming out saying that, oh, you really want fame? You really want to be a star? Are you willing to do anything? And they were saying, and these guys are coming out saying they would have 3-4 men there having sex in a room, homosexual sex, and they would say, go have sex with them. And we'll watch you. You said you're willing to do anything. Let's see. Let's see. Have fun. Go. Let's see. And the guys are there, and then these wannabe Hollywood stars have to go have sex with them in a freaking studio. And that's their little initiation rite. And now they prove to their producers that, oh, they're willing to do whatever the producer says for fame. And that producer will then start pushing them to, pushing their albums and blah, 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 getting them the best, writers or whatever the case may be, and make them into a big star. Because he's got a leash on them. He's got a leash on them. That person is now a slave to that person. And at any moment, when that producer gets sick of you, you can pull the plug and you're dead. You're gone. He literally becomes Lord over you because you've done the commandments of wickedness. You've obeyed it. Are you with me? This is why, in becoming more politically awake, one discovers that the root of all of this wickedness, I mean, even the Washington Times, for example, exposed the pedophile ring that the Bushes were running, the homosexual ring that they were running in Washington, D.C. That was what, in the 80s or 90s or something like that? And they want to say we're in bed with the Bushes. We freaking exposed the Bushes pedophile ring. Hello? Father called him the king of Satan's world. Hello? Let alone all the women that Clinton has had and the Democratic Party of their lust for lasciviousness and lust for power. So many of them have so much dirt. You know, there's Washington, D.C. have tons of little parties that the senators and congressmen indulge in. Just like the British Parliament that was exposed to the Jimmy Savile scandals and the Edward Heath scandals of necrophilia and pedophilia, killing children, and then having sex with their dead bodies. This is a level of psychopathy that you're dealing with, folks. Because once you're willing to do evil for power, there's a very slippery slope, and it ends up in the same place, by the way. It always ends up in the same place. Not only the sexual defilement of young children, but the killing of them, and of course, then the eating of them. Just the more wicked they can think, the more wicked things they can think, the more they will do that. As a means to prove their worthiness of power, to prove how badass they are, so to speak. They'll do anything for power. Doesn't matter. There's no boundaries. No, those kind of people are not fearful, scary. Those kind of people are pathetic. And those kind of people will destroy one another. Evil people believe that if you're that kind of person, you're badass and you're basically going to win. You're not going to win. You're going to destroy one. If you're creating a hierarchy of people like that, and you are basically ruling with people like that, your kingdoms will fall apart. It's not held together by tyranny and wickedness like that. That's only temporary. Kingdoms that last cannot be held together like that. Which is the reason why they want to centralize power to themselves. And then, of course, continue to steal. That's the only way they can maintain their wicked hegemonies. For example, as well as the Chinese rulers as well. Pedophile rulers. The only way they're able to stay together as a nation is by conquering and taking other nations' resources. This is the only way any centralized power or government can exist is by conquering other nations and stealing their resources. There's no way that you can have, in a free market, a nation that is ruled by evil like that and succeed in the free market. It cannot succeed. It's inherently wicked. And that will come out of its organization, will come out and exude it through its organizational ranks. And people will start smelling that and they will not go near it. See, the only way you can make that continue is by forcing people through the use of the state and of government to support it. You can never do it by people's willingness and by choice. No. So again, we deal with another king who got into the Edomites and he got into the stupid gods and all this kind of stuff. You know, this is the danger. This is the danger. The new generations always think, oh, we got to do something new. We've got to like innovate. We've got to like evolve. You know, this, you know. Like this is like evolution. It's like you know it's like new. It's so modern, right? This one, they're always doing the same stupid cycle of young, dumb, brainwashed, dumb idiot kids who think they're gonna invent something new under the sun. And then their examples are like, well, there was never an iPhone before. That's their example. Okay. Whenever one of their dads say, nothing new under the sun, then they say, well, there was never an iPhone. You see what I'm saying? That's not what the father was talking about. He was talking about ideologically. Look at these idiots that made the iPhone, the different technology. They're communists. I mean, Apple owns sweat factories in China. They're doing slave labor with poor Asian people in China. Right now, folks, right now. Apple and Google are colluding with one of the biggest genocidal maniac countries, China, in the world. That is organ harvesting its own people. But parents are so stupid sometimes. They don't even know how to answer when kids say stupid things like that. They let the kids get away with, oh, okay, what? Well, you know. They don't even know what they're talking about sometimes. That's a problem. You know, a dad will say to the child, there's nothing new under the sun. And the child said, well, there's an iPhone. Well, the dad has to make the child understand. He didn't mean in terms of new products. Of course, there's new products. that are taking bits and pieces of ideas that people have had over the generations. He's talking about ideologically. There's no new ideology under the sun because there's basically just two different ideologies. There's only two. It's God versus Satan. It's basically sovereignty versus collectivism. I mean, that's basically it. That's only basically about two options is what you got between how a civilization will exist. Are you going to trust people, the majority of people, to protect and push for society? Or are you not? I mean, it's that simple. Are you going to be like God who trusts humanity and believes that even though through free will some will choose evil, most will choose good and choose him? Or you can be like Satan that leads people to evil, yet people resist and want to go back to good, and so he keeps them evil by coercion and force, which is the state and which is manifested most I would say lucidly in the state and in government. Government by far is the most dangerous force on the planet. It has murdered, totalitarian states have murdered over 220 million people. It's a catastrophe. Socialism, communism, leftism, fascism, which of course is of the left, it's not a right, it's just a nationalistic form of socialism. Whereas when we talk about communism, we're talking about international, there's a desire for international communism, one world communism, this sort of one world utopian sort of impetus and drive within it. Fascism is just, there's not necessarily a international desire, but there's a national desire for the consolidation of power. So it's the same. It's a leftist ideology. The real nationalism is not a nationalism that's trying to centralize power to that nation. It's trying to decentralize and destroy power of the state. That's what real nationalism is. It's trying to destroy the power of the state or reduce it to a very small amount. I mean, that's what nationalism means when people in the liberty movement are talking about nationalism. They don't mean some kind of fascist nationalist, government like Hitler or something, which the left blames them for all the time. It's ridiculous. They basically mean sovereignty-based liberty, limited government, checks and balances, things like that. Human rights that are protected. Protection from the state, this is the real point. Protection from the archangel. The means of protection from the archangel. And that's why the rule of the rod of iron is so unbelievably revolutionary and so unbelievably fearful for control freaks and for those who want to centralize power to themselves. And of course, that is every single elite class in the world. That's why they fear the message of the rod of iron so to their bones. Which is the reason why it's spreading like wildfire, and we have nations that are sending their documentary teams to come. Of course, they're coming to try to destroy us and make us look crazy, etc. But the Word of God stands, folks. The Word of God stands. You cannot deny that the rod of iron kingdom is the biblical kingdom. It is the kingdom that will rule the nations with the rod of iron. Hello? You can't deny it. It's right there in the Word of God. And as there's revolutions and geopolitically, God is preparing the good soil for millions of people to enter into the kingdom of the rod of iron and the crown. co-heirship, co-kingship with the King of Kings and his kingship. The whole world's been prepared. And when the rod of iron king comes, it does smash nations into shivers like the potter's vessel. It does pretty much smash the nation state. It pretty much smashes the nation's government. Pretty much smashes it. It does it by a very unorthodox method, doesn't it? By arming the people. It creates an overwhelming defensive force, potentiality. Overwhelming defensive potentiality, let's put it that way. An overwhelming defensive potentiality of force. That any lunatic or psychopath can see and smell and say, holy crap, I better not bite that lion. You see how it smashes the nation? It smashes the nation by basically making the citizens into lions. Then in the predator class then smells it and says, oh my gosh, what am I doing now? This is terrible. We better move. We better move. There's lions in this area. Can you imagine if President Trump pulled out of the UN and set up an able UN where he allowed for all the Chinese rights, the Kingdom of God rights, especially the right to bear arms, to be given to any nation that joins that? Just like the UN, for example, tries to make the whole world under its, quote, international law. Can you imagine if President Trump did something like that? Which, of course, Father wanted, any of the American presidents to have the balls to do. I mean, who was talking about the able UN? My gosh, I mean, nobody was talking about this kind of stuff when Father was talking about this kind of stuff. You understand what I'm saying? But that legacy continues on, and my gosh, if President Trump pulled out of the satanic UN, which is basically they're seeking international communism, is what they're seeking, in one world government. Okay, and they're of course funded by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. So they're a pathetic, evil, wicked organization. Moral posturing organization, have massive pedophilia problems within their own ranks, and of course cover it up, especially with the UN workers that are raping children, trafficking children. That was brought to their attention and was covered right up. Anyways, the point is, imagine if President Trump pulled out of that and he made another international or an able UN, where the nations that joined there would have to give their rights, the human rights of the right to bear arms, to their nations. Oh my gosh. And then he could help those nations by trading with them and giving them benefits, giving them specific trade benefits that, he can cut off ties with the other communist nations that ideologically don't sync with us. And he can funnel the business towards those nations and build up their economies, etc. So there would be incentives for people to join that, but in order for nations to join that, but if they joined, they would have to give their rod of iron kingdom. How amazing would that be, huh? They would have to give them the gift of the rod of iron. That would be the trade-off. My gosh, that would change the world. That would change the world. That would forever change those nations. Those nations would no longer, and President Trump would literally be King Cyrus for the world. He would have set free nations. He would forever allow the people to be able to protect their destiny and their futures. Because collectively, they're not psychopaths. The majority are not psychopaths. Collectively, the majority want to live and let live. So the real problem is the predator class that constantly tries to centralize power themselves. If you can stop them, you can stop the cycles of suffering. that are, of course, caused by governments on the largest scale. You will still have to fight evil in your own mind. You'll still have to fight evil and you know, on a smaller level, but it's always better to fight evil at the local level than it is to fight at the federal level, because at the federal level you can't even see what you're fighting. The thing is so big and deep. It's much easier to fight enemies that you can see. So at least in the local level, if there's wicked people, at least you can see them. If they're in a different nation like Brussels or something, you can't even see the stupid unelected officials of the EU. How are you going to fight them? Are you with me? Hello? It's easy to get rid of your own local commissioner or your local police chief or whatever it is, some corrupt official that has become corrupt. It's way easier to get rid of them rather than getting rid of some Juncker in Sweden or something, Switzerland or whatever, wherever he is. That's like ridiculous. He's in a different nation. But this is the system they want to create. They will be making laws for the U.S. from Europe. Hello, from Geneva. Geneva. Who do you know in Geneva? America, Mr. America. You know anybody in Geneva? Don't sign up for that. President Trump is not an idiot. Boy, if President Trump, golly, I mean, that would be tremendous, wouldn't it be tremendous? Anyways, we don't know how God is working, but we know that the rod of iron kingdom is being released in the atmosphere. And the festival is coming, and the book is coming. Even more force multipliers that will spread the message of rod of iron even further and farther and deeper into the hearts and minds of men, setting brush fires of liberty and freedom and God's kingdom in the hearts and minds of men and women all over this world. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.